Here's something that should keep you up at night. Every single country on earth is in debt. Not most countries, everyone. The United States owes over $35 trillion, dollars, China $16.5 trillion, Japan over $10 trillion. Add it all up, governments, corporations, households, the financial sector, and you get a number so absurd it barely registers as real. $346 trillion. That's more than 3 times the size of the entire global economy. So here's the question that should be rattling around your brain right now. If every country owes money, who exactly do they owe it to? Aliens? Some secret trillionaire hiding on a private island? Nope. The answer is way weirder than that. And to understand it, you have to understand something most people never learn: how money actually works. Let's start with the biggest misconception in economics. Most people think banks work like this. You deposit your paycheck, the bank takes that money, lends it to someone buying a house, and earns interest on the difference. Simple, right? Wrong. That's not how it works. At all. When a bank approves a loan, it doesn't go into some vault and pull out someone else's savings. It literally creates new money out of thin air. The bank types a number into the borrower's account. Boom, money exists that didn't exist 5 seconds ago. This isn't some conspiracy theory. The Bank of England itself said it plainly. Bank lending creates deposits, not the other way around. The Reserve Bank of New Zealand confirmed it. In Australia, physical cash, the bills and coins you can actually hold, accounts for less than 3% of all the money in the economy. The rest, electronic money conjured into existence every time someone signs a loan agreement. Now, here's where it gets really interesting and kind of unsettling. If money is created when loans are made, what happens when loans are paid back? The money disappears, it's destroyed, poof, gone from the money supply. Which means, and stay with me here, if every person, every company, and every government on earth paid off all their debts simultaneously, there would be virtually no money left. The economy wouldn't just slow down, it would cease to function. The system doesn't just tolerate debt, it requires it. Debt is the engine, debt is the fuel, debt in a very real sense is money itself. Ray Dalio, the guy who built the world's largest hedge fund, put it bluntly: debt is currency and currency is debt. They're the same thing viewed from different angles. If you don't like one, you shouldn't like the other either. So how did we get here? This didn't happen overnight. The roots go back centuries. Picture 17th century Europe. Goldsmiths are storing people's gold in their vault and handing out paper receipts. People start trading the receipts instead of the gold because it's easier. Then the goldsmiths have a realization, a dangerous, brilliant realization. Most people never come back for their gold at the same time. So why not lend out some of that gold and charge interest? They start issuing more receipts than there is actual gold in the vault. And just like that, fractional reserve banking is born. More claims on wealth than wealth that actually exists. Sound familiar? For a while, currencies were at least tethered to something physical. Under the Bretton Woods system, the US dollar was backed by gold. But in 1971, President Nixon cut the cord. No more gold standard. From that moment on, the dollar, and by extension, most of the world's currencies, became fiat money. Their value backed by nothing but trust. The full faith and credit of the issuing government, which is a fancy way of saying, we promise this is worth something. And once money was untethered from gold, the borrowing really took off. The World Bank has identified 4 massive waves of global debt accumulation over the past 50 years. The first wave hit in the 70s, oil money flooding into Latin American countries that couldn't handle it, ending in the debt crisis of 1982. The second wave crashed through East Asia in the late 90s. The third built up in Europe and emerging markets before exploding in the 2008 financial crisis. And the fourth wave, that's the one we're living through right now. It started around 2010, and it's the biggest, fastest, and most widespread debt surge in half a century. It's not regional anymore, it's everywhere. Debt rose in 79% of emerging market economies. Then COVID hit. And the floodgates didn't just open, they were ripped off their hinges. US government spending jumped 50% between 2019 and 2021. Globally, debt surged to $303 trillion in 2021, the biggest one-year spike since World War II. But here's what most people miss. It's not just governments drowning in debt. Households owe about $64.6 trillion worldwide. Corporations owe nearly $100 trillion. When you hear global debt, you're hearing about every mortgage, every car loan, every corporate bond, every government treasury bill, all of it stacked together. Now, governments borrow differently than you and I do. When the United States needs money, it doesn't go to a bank and fill out an application. It issues bonds, essentially IOUs, that say, give us money now and we'll pay you back later with interest. Banks, pension funds, mutual funds, insurance companies, foreign governments, they all buy these bonds. And here's the twist. The Federal Reserve, America's own central bank, also buys them, using money it creates digitally, out of nothing. This is quantitative easing, QE. The Fed did it 4 times since the 2008 crisis. Its balance sheet ballooned from $882 billion to nearly $9 trillion. 9 trillion. All that new money flowing into the system, pushing interest rates down, making it cheaper for everyone to borrow more, which they did. And that's the trap. Low interest rates are like an open bar at a wedding. Everyone drinks more than they should because it feels free. Governments borrowed cheaply. Corporations borrowed cheaply. And for over a decade, it seemed like the party would never end. But now interest rates have climbed, and the hangover is brutal. The United States is now paying over $1 trillion a year just in interest on its debt. Not paying down the debt, just the interest. Across OECD countries, interest payments now exceed what governments spend on defense. Let that sink in. We're spending more to service past borrowing than to protect our countries. And it's even worse for developing nations. 3.4 billion people, almost half the world's population, live in countries that spend more on debt interest than on health or education. Developing countries shelled out $921 billion in interest payments in 2024 alone. 60% of low-income countries are at or near debt distress. The World Bank's chief economist called debt a form of deferred taxation, which is a polite way of saying someone's going to pay for this eventually, and it's probably not going to be the people who benefited most from the borrowing. Here's the thing that really bends your mind, though. Governments don't actually plan to pay their debt back, ever. They roll it over. When old bonds mature, they issue new ones. The principal never gets repaid. It just gets refinanced again and again into the future. The whole system runs on confidence. As long as investors believe a government can keep making interest payments, they keep buying bonds. The moment that confidence cracks, that's when you get a crisis. We've seen it before. Spain defaulted 6 times between 1550 and 1650. France defaulted 8 times between 1550 and 1800. After World War I, the Treaty of Versailles saddled Germany with $32 billion in debt, equivalent to over $400 billion today. To make payments, Germany printed money. The result was hyperinflation, so catastrophic the currency became worthless. People wallpapered their homes with banknotes because the paper was worth more than the denomination printed on it. So is today's debt a ticking time bomb? It depends on who you ask. Modern monetary theory advocates say governments that borrow in their own currency can never truly go broke. They can always create more money. The real constraint is insolvency. It's inflation. But when a survey asked 50 top economists about MMT's core claims, not a single one agreed. Paul Krugman called them obviously indefensible. Even the middle ground position from former IMF chief economist Olivier Blanchard only says debt might not be so bad when growth rates exceed interest rates. Might. Mark Blyth, the political economist, makes a point that should make your blood boil. After 2008, governments didn't go into debt from reckless spending. They went into debt bailing out the banks whose reckless lending caused the crisis. Private debt got rechristened as public debt. The people who created the mess walked away. The taxpayers got the bill. And that's really the story of global debt. It's not one story. It's a system. A system where money is born from borrowing, where debt feeds on itself, where crises get solved with more debt, and where the bill keeps getting passed to the next generation. 42% of all sovereign debt matures in the next 3 years. That means trillions will need to be refinanced at higher interest rates than when it was originally borrowed. So the world isn't $251 trillion in debt because somebody made a mistake. It's in debt because debt is how the system was designed to work. Every dollar in your pocket, every number in your bank account, it exists because somebody somewhere borrowed it into existence. The real question isn't how we got here. It's whether the confidence that holds this whole thing together can last forever. Because if history teaches us anything, it's that nothing does. Thanks for watching. If you found this insightful, like and subscribe for more deep dives into our world's financial mysteries.